Welcome to the post show from Singapore, the Singapore Grand Prix. 6 left to go in the 2025 season. And that means that Austin is next. Can't wait for that. Looking forward to it. And obviously, if you've got your tickets, come and join us. It's going to be a real festival. And constructors have been named. That is, that McLaren have done it back to back. And yes, it's interesting listening to the commentators talk about the torrid time that McLaren have had over the last decade. And to see them finish again as champions, pretty darned impressive. Little bit of shenanigans at the start there. Not a classic race by any means, in that we didn't have the excitement perhaps and the jeopardy that we expected from the potential of safety cars and so on. In fact, it was pretty regimental in that respect. Russell, though, did not put a foot wrong, and it also shows that Mercedes aren't out by any means, even though they were the dominant force from the last decade. Russell up there, and I'm just looking at the championship. He could, I suppose, challenge Verstappen for third overall, while we're talking about Verstappen challenging the two McLarens. Bob Varsha was watching it with me, and I know was just as interested as I was to see whether they would clinch the title, which they did. Bob, your thoughts just initially?
Much like you, I thought it was kind of procedural. We've seen more spectacular Singapore Grand Prix in the past. Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm sitting here remembering that this morning I said we've had so many yellow flags and so much wall contact and all that sort of thing that this could be a real potboiler, but it turned out to be nothing like that. George Russell simply dominated. Good on him. It's funny when you see these professionals and they can't explain why the car works better now than it did last week and so on. But it was not, as you say, a classic race. And once again, my snore meter indicated that I lost a lot of laps in that race when I fell asleep. But congratulations to everyone. You did point out the one real action highlight, I guess we'd say, was right at the start. And perhaps we're beginning to see the gloves come off at McLaren. They've got their second Constructors' Championship in as many years, and that's job done at the top of the list. So now they got to go about winning the Drivers' World Championship. And it may be time for someone there to step in because obviously Oscar Piastri, who it must be said has had some pretty miserable weekends recently, was not happy with his teammate, Lando Norris. But Norris, for his part, he's got a championship to chase too. So he went out there and did what he thought he had to do. He thought it was an aggressive pass right there at the start. And I think his teammate, we heard him say on the air, that's not good teamwork when you're pushing your teammate off the road to advance your position. So, yeah, there'll be a lot to unbox as these teams make their way to Austin. And like you, I hope we see a lot of the folks listening or watching on YouTube or whatever for the U.S. Grand Prix in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
other than that, there's not really anything that sticks out to me.
No, not really. I want to continue that, and I'd be interested to hear what Chris has to say. But it wasn't egregious. Is the best way I can describe it. He didn't try to force it. It wasn't over the top. It was a first lap incident that didn't need to be investigated any further. It's never good when you touch your teammate. And he had damage to the car, but he continued with that broken wing slightly, even through a pit stop. But I can see the niggle now, and you kind of got the feeling throughout that race that Piastri was done with the niceties of being the new guy, stroke the polite Australian, coached and managed by the other polite Australian who had his nose rubbed in it throughout his career. I just feel now that Camp Piastri have said, okay, we've got the constructors. I don't care what's said in any meetings. I'm going to go for this title. It could be my only chance.
Sure. That's exactly what everyone would expect him to say, I would imagine. It's just an unhappy thing. It's you like to see a team march forward with a united front. But as we pointed out so many times before, these guys are running for a world championship. As you just said, you don't get many of these opportunities. So, Oscar Piastri is going to go out there and do everything he can to put Lando Norris behind him and claim the Drivers' Championship, as well he should.
Yeah, I mean, we've all kind of been living under this fantasy that it can work. And what I mean by that is that you can have this very, very nice fight, fair fight, and that everybody will be happy with the result. And it's never the case. And even though McLaren have done a good job and put on some great entertaining racing, and I do like the ethos for McLaren, but it could also still bite them. There's 6 races to go. It only needs them to get them. We saw it happen with Mercedes back in Barcelona, a century ago, but about a decade ago with Rosberg and Hamilton.
Rosberg and Hamilton.
Yeah. And that ended somewhat acrimoniously, and it started with the engineers changing at the beginning of the season. It was always going to end up in some sort of acrimony, and it did. But I just, I hope it doesn't. And I hope that one of these drivers now steps out. The difference is 22 points, and that's what makes it even harder, is that it really is graspable by Norris if, for example, and you've got to think the odds are there, Piastri's going to have some sort of problem. Now Mercedes are a part of the ambush, if you will, as are Red Bull, and that's kind of added a bit of spice that we weren't expecting. We expected 1-2s from McLaren probably till the end of the season. It ain't going to happen, I don't think. And I think Antonelli, Leclerc, Russell, Verstappen are all going to be taking points away from the 2 McLaren drivers. And when we see them at both Austin and Vegas, especially Vegas, Bob, I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a real showdown in the cold air of Las Vegas. That may not end it, but it could make it a very interesting few races, couldn't it?
Yeah, no question about it. You just hope. You hope for a good sportsman-like, aggressive, sure, daring, sure, but not mean-spirited, not vengeful, that sort of thing. And these guys are all mature enough to know that this is the way it goes sometimes in racing. One thing that I was curious about was Lewis Hamilton lost his brakes virtually entirely by the end of that race. I mean, he was out of disc. I remember many, many years ago at Imola, Nigel Mansell and Riccardo Patrese, I guess, were driving for Williams. Yep. And it was just a thundering race, is what we always expected from Nigel. But I was talking with, I guess it was Patrick Head. He said that was a very near thing. And I said, what do you mean? He said, hang on. Turned around, went into the back of the garage, came back out holding a brake disc that came off Mansell's car, FW, whatever it was. And he held it up, and you could literally see through the disc. I mean, you could see, hold it up to the sun, you could see the sunlight through the disc, and that's not the way they're supposed to look at the end of a race. So that was curious. It's been a long time since we heard of somebody running out of brakes, not losing your brakes, but just running out of them, just wearing them out in the course of 62 laps in Singapore.
Yeah, we used to talk a lot about it at Monza, obviously, because of the high speeds. But you're absolutely right. It's rare. Just a quick check on those who've just joined us after the Singapore Grand Prix. Russell takes the win from flag to flag. Verstappen second, Norris third. More importantly, Piastri fourth. So the 2 McLaren drivers third and fourth. And therefore, Norris does collect a couple of points against his rival, and the gap is now 22 points. Antonelli was fifth, Leclerc, Hamilton sixth and seventh, Alonso into the top 10, scoring points for Aston Martin. Behrman did a good job, good weekend for the Haas driver, and they scored 2 more points or a few more points, and the top 10 rounded out by Carlos Sainz, which actually not a bad effort really by the Williams driver, given that they both had to start at the back after DRS problems. Then Hadjar, who was complaining about engines, Tsunoda 12th, Stroll, Albon, Lawson dropped to 15, Colapinto, Bortoletto, Ocon, Gasly, and Hulkenberg. That was your finishing order. And in the championship, Piastri 324 now, Lando 299. And therefore, a little bit of movement. George Russell moving up a little bit, obviously, on Max Verstappen, who's third at the moment. But really, not a lot of change to talk about, per se. Is there anybody else down the order that I've just mentioned in the top 20, obviously? Is there anybody you want to point out as being good or bad in that order?
Well, we noted that Gabriel Bortoletto, for example, did not qualify well, and he didn't race well either. You know, he had a big spin. His teammate did too. Nico Hulkenberg lost grip at one point. So there seemed to be a bit of confusion out there, or guys just trying too hard. And one correction slight to what you just said. It wasn't a flag-to-flag win for Russell. Somebody else led at some point. In fact, I think the McLarens didn't, but it was a dominating performance nonetheless. You got the sense that Russell was totally in control of this race. If he had to go faster, he easily could have. And that's going to lead to some excited engineering conferences at Mercedes, knowing that they've got a weapon now. I mean, and Kimi Antonelli was right there to reiterate that. He was strong throughout, although he didn't finish as high as he qualified. Did he? No, he was fifth, started fourth.
He dropped a couple of places.
Yeah. So, interesting times with 6 races to go in 2025.
Yeah, and obviously we'll talk a little bit more about McLaren, because I'd like to get your take on the comeback that is. It is worth just pondering for a second just what they've achieved in a short amount of time that makes them look almost every weekend now like the Mercedes of old, or the Ferrari of old when Michael Schumacher was dominating. Yeah. It's a very interesting time in that respect. Or will it go out the window next year? That's a question for all of us. Well, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we will discuss just that. Hopefully we'll hear from Medland, who will be sending us some stuff, but also we'll be wrapping up more of the Singapore Grand Prix. So, what do we got on the interwebs? The only negative MCL winning, that's McLaren. The constructors said, I can't find an after party in Austin to help them celebrate. You'll find one, don't you worry, AP. Head over to the studio. Yeah, we'll be partying hard. 4 DRS zones and you still can't pass. Yeah, that is a very good point, Andy P. Very good point. Lots of pit stops, maybe heat affecting the wheel crews. What do you think? What else? Bill Richter, lots of pit stops. He's already said that. The soft gamble for Max just didn't pay off. Well, no, he really needed to, for that to come off, I think he needed to have got that first corner. He just didn't get it.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm just looking at the top 10. Hamilton 7th, Alonso 8th, Behrman 9th, and each of those cars was on a different type of Pirelli tire.
Yeah.
Hamilton on the soft, Alonso on the medium, and Behrman on the hard.
Joe from Oyster Bay makes... Yeah, that's interesting. Joe from Oyster Bay makes a good comment. Fernando's English is precise and efficient. And that never a truer word is spoken. I don't know what his beef was.
What he took like 50 seconds out of Lewis Hamilton and his fading brakes at the end of that race.
Yeah.
Was God knows how far behind him. And he comes home and finishes 0.7 of a second behind Hamilton.
Yeah, well, another comment from Joe at Oyster Bay is that McLaren need to fix their pit stop issues. He's right there. That could have really hampered them. I mean, it was a slow pit stop. for
Oh, yeah.
Piastri. 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not good. And they've also been one of the top
Mm-mm.
teams for that sort of stuff.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
And right now, with zero commitment, try Oracle Cloud Infrastructure for free. Head to oracle.com/formula. That's oracle.com/formula. Welcome back to the show. We're looking at the Singapore Grand Prix, which, to be fair, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It wasn't a classic. It was one for the, if you like, the real study of Formula One. That's when there's no overtaking and or very little,
Right?
And there's not a lot to analyze controversially, put it that way. But we are at a very interesting time in the season. And we are at an interesting time, as always, with 6 to go, adjusting and assuming what will happen next year to the drivers in the Drivers' Championship. No worries for McLaren. They will continue. It's interesting that Dunn, we mentioned him on the pre-show, has now left McLaren and put himself up now for grabs, which means he's entered the market. But there's a few teams, Bob, as we look down the list of sort of driver pairings, Ferrari for another example, that and Mercedes, who really aren't going to give their juniors any wiggle room to get involved, or and I wonder whether Dunn will be the first to drop. Drogovic is another one. He's doing Formula E, but he's been around for a long time now. What do you see? Is there any shift in the driver market after that race, or as we go on to Austin?
I would say no. There's no big shift. I think everybody in that pit lane knows if they're in a position to sign contracts with drivers, they know who they want and who they're going to have for next season. Now, whether that changes when the teams bring out these entirely different new car engine hybrid combinations, 50% electrical, 50% internal combustion, whether that'll change, whether you need to hire an engineer to drive the race car, we'll have to wait and see. But no, as I think I said yesterday on our qualifying wrap up, these, we get these surges of young talent. This year is a great example. We have 6 or 7 really strong rookies out there. And that's not going to happen next year. You can see that right now. Nobody wants to put a rookie in a strange and different new race car, and I get that. But there's not a whole bunch of them standing by.
Well, listen, Bob, I've just heard Chris is on the line from Singapore. So, Chris, come on in. What you got?
Well, I don't know if you got to play it out while I was away there. I grabbed the word with Toto Wolff in the pit lane before the podium happened, just to I guess congratulate him on what performance that was from Mercedes. I've chatted to Toto, and I've also just grabbed Ayao Komatsu actually to speak about Haas getting some points as well with Ollie Behrman, who what a good performance that was for a rookie. Although there were caveats from Komatsu in that chat, which is a good one. And now, given the woes I had pre-race, I am parked outside Williams on their Wi-Fi and timing my run into the pit lane when I'm going to try and get some McLaren team members. But I was wondering if James Vowles might be around shortly, because that was one of the standout drives for me today was Carlos Sainz going from 18th to 10th.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really strong stuff, which you rarely get here without interruptions. So it was a strange one in the sense of, watching what I thought was actually a very good defensive. He had to fight hard. Max Verstappen to hold on to P2. When you saw how difficult it was to overtake, it is a surprise to see a car come to the field in the way that Sainz did, and Alonso actually fighting his way back in after his issue. So, there were some moves back there. It just wasn't really at the front where it just stayed tense, but didn't really catch fire, did it?
No, it didn't. Yeah. Your take on the first corner, Piastri?
Complete racing incident for me, and one where it was a Norris error, and it was a very small one that's from just running to the back of Max. Tiny bit of contact with Max that unsettled his car, meant that he then made light contact with Piastri. I totally get Oscar being upset. When you watch the onboard from Oscar's car, it looks just like his teammate tries to run him into the wall. And I really do accept that he will feel that was completely unfair. But then I think once he sees the replay from Lando's car, he'll realise actually that's not the way it appeared to me at the time. And also that the impact of making contact with Verstappen's rear end is what then unsettled the McLaren and put them next to each other. Still, though, it did show that was punchy and risky from Norris. And I don't think McLaren will be utterly delighted with it, because there was a chance that both cars suddenly ended up in the wall there and out of the race because of the way he attacked those first couple of corners. A greater chance than there maybe needed to be. So, that's one where I can see there'll be words afterwards.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I can find my way to the front of some sort of queue to speak to either Andrea Stella or Zach Brown, because, of course, they have wrapped up the Constructors' Championship. It is a big day for them to celebrate, but they've still got plenty of pressure on them, because that's another 6 points that Max has taken out the championship lead.
Yeah. And it does make you think. I do think the euphoria of winning the Constructors will dumb down the Inquisition, if you will, and it will get forgotten or at least put aside until next week. Let's talk about it next week. You're right. We will address it, type thing. But of course, in the light of day, things will have calmed down. Piastri will have calmed down, and attention will be on Austin.
Yeah, that's kind of the way these teams operate. And I think you're right that with the space of time and analysis with the help of their engineers, the drivers will figure out what happened here, whether it's excusable or not. And I tend to go with Chris. I think it was a racing incident.
Well, Chris did catch up with the winning constructor of the day anyway. That, of course, Mercedes, as George Russell takes the win. Here's Toto Wolff with Chris.
Toto, if I could quickly, what a drive from George, what a victory for the team. And as you say, a double win with McLaren taking the constructors today as well with a Mercedes power unit. Yeah, exactly.
To have a Mercedes winning the Constructor World Championship, a Mercedes powered car winning the Constructor Championship, and a real Mercedes winning the race, and that's something to be happy about.
How tough was that? Looked like George couldn't quite fully break away, but it looked like he had it under control still.
Yeah, I think he had it under control all the time. Just creating the gap that was necessary, and he looked in the mirror and he saw where Max was.
How sweet is this feeling? It's not been easy this year, has it?
No, it's good to bounce back like this, with a really, really solid win. There was nobody that could come close, and that's something to be happy about.
Enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's interesting. You start to pontificate now on just how strong Mercedes will be. I think Adrian Newey started the conversation when he said next year, 26, that is, will be an engine-powered dominance. Right. And you look at who's got what for next year. Ferrari aren't showing their head. Mercedes clearly are both constructors with McLaren and winners, and at the sharp end. Are they going to be favourites for 26, I wonder?
Arguably. The thing that I'm confused by on that front, though, is which team with a Mercedes power unit has done the best job over the past 3 years? And it's not Mercedes, is it? It's McLaren.
Yeah.
So even if that Mercedes engine is the best one, my faith is still more with McLaren to get it right than it is with Mercedes to get it right. So I do think that the way it'll be integrated, the way it'll all come together, I think really will actually benefit Mercedes, give them a chance of getting closer. But there's no guarantees on that front as Carlos Sainz comes by. He's done a brilliant job today going through, as we said, from the back of the field. It looks like he's hot one out there, right?
Well, it was okay.
Oh, nice and chilled?
Yeah.
Easy.
Nice rest now.
Nice easy afternoon.
Do you see me tired?
He's smiling. He's got the team here applauding him, so I'll let them celebrate.
Nice impromptu, though. Yeah, he sounded very relaxed.
He really was as well. He's properly just looking very happy and chilled, which I did not expect. I did think that was just him talking up. But,
well, they wouldn't have thought they could get points out of today, could they?
No, not at all. So, I mean, a result does help, doesn't it? You heard Lando as well when he crossed the line saying that he felt awful, but actually it didn't matter. So, what an impressive performance that was from Sainz, but also I think a good result for anyone makes them feel a bit better when they cross the line. So that's probably why he's putting on that brave face. Plus, I did time that very well. He was walking into the hospitality where all the guests are, all the VIPs are. They were ready to applaud him. He's doing photos with VIPs. And that's the time to put a brave face on it, isn't it? Make it look like you're this elite athlete who barely broke a sweat.
That's exactly how I planned it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, there's lots
I like
to
your
talk
point
about.
Toto. And
Go ahead, Bob.
what Toto said. Toto says a Mercedes-powered car wins the constructors' championship, and a real Mercedes won the race. What? Toto, what that is your engine in someone else's chassis.
Yeah.
Has taken all the goodies.
Yep.
In the constructors.
Well, talking
With
of
three-quarters of the season run.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, good point. Listen, you got another good interview in with Ayao Komatsu of Haas, and of course, Behrman finished 9th. Good result. And a good weekend for Ollie Behrman. Let's hear from Ayao Komatsu.
Ayo, it's a long, hot race for the drivers. Is it a long, hot race on the pit wall as well for a team boss?
Yeah, it is, but of course, I can't complain. I'm not doing any physical exercise.
No, but the heart rate that was a race that you were fighting for points, and Ollie brought them home in 9th place. How pleased are you with his drive today?
It was good. Yeah, I'd say like 80% good. Then it's just a shame that we couldn't keep P8. Alonso was quick. Aston was quick, to be fair. But, we just struggled coming through the DRS train. And then, of course, if you look at Fernando, how he came through, was really, really good. But I'm not saying it's all his fault, because Aston showed that they were really quick, and then, Alonso, what he's capable of. But it's just something like we need to look at, is it our top speed? Is it our car characteristics that makes the, overtaking more difficult? Because, we were miles ahead of Fernando. Then it's just, if we can come through the traffic, then we'd have secured P8. So everything counts, right? So I'm very happy that, we put the weekend together without any major mistakes, and we scored 2 points. But it's just, I think maximum today would have been 4 points. So, yeah.
Well, partly maybe that would have been helped, as you say, by the way he came through traffic, but also the start looked like it nearly all came undone for Ollie in that contact with Isaac Hadjar. So, I mean, how tense was that moment?
Oh, it was very tense, but obviously at the start, I don't look at Hadjar's onboard. I'm only look at Ollie and Esteban's onboard. They initially looked like Hadjar punted him off, but when I looked at Hadjar onboard, he had nowhere to go. Ferrari was on the left-hand side, Hadjar was here, then Ollie came in to the corner. So it is a racing incident. So again, it's just those fine margins, right? Then that's got Alonso ahead, but thankfully, because Alonso had a slow stop, then we got ahead again. But yeah, those are small details that define things. But overall, I think I have to be happy. I think we put the weekend together from FP1 to quality race, which is something we couldn't do in last 3 races. So there's lots of positives to take, and then at least we came out with 2 points. So looking forward to Austin, trying to capitalize as much as we can.
Well, and don't forget, that's Ollie, a rookie, his first time racing here, and he has kept it clean, as you mentioned. So that was impressive. But for Esteban, more experienced, he's gone well here in the past, but it didn't seem to quite come together this weekend.
No, honestly, I feel really bad about that, because from FP1 to FP3, he was quick. He was very, very quick. I would say that's the best Friday he's had this year. And even FP3, we made some experiment on setup changes, which didn't work, but the way he came back for the final qualifying in FP3 was very strong. So I was really expecting a strong qualifying from Esteban. And then Q1 round 1, he had issue with the seat belt, so he couldn't really brake. So Q1 round 1 was total waste. Then he had no reference, then going to final run in Q2. And he was actually doing okay. He would have been through, but for yellow flag. So it's just very unlucky. If only one of those 2 things happened, he would have survived into Q2, and then I'm sure he would have been either the same or a bit faster or a bit slower, basically somewhere around where Ollie was. So P9, P10, P11, that kind of potential, or even P8, so that kind of potential was there. So then, of course, when you start from P17 here, it's very difficult. We tried a few things, but it just didn't work out. You need some luck to progress from P17. So, yeah, it's just qualifying, how unfortunate can you get, especially when you're having an amazing practice session. But good thing is, he was quick, very quick. So take that positive onto Austin again, try to repeat that, and it will come.
Well, as you say, both cars then competitive, and you've mentioned Austin a couple of times there. The team's home race has always been a big one for Haas. How much are you looking forward to that, and what do you think's possible there? Because there's times we've seen you be very competitive in Austin.
I honestly don't know, but we look at the problem in front of us. I don't see why we cannot be competitive, but it's just such a fine margin. If you get the tire compounds to work or car balance, downforce level, every little details, we need to get it right. So, yeah, I think if we get everything right, I'm sure we can fight both cars in points.
And is there an update there?
Yeah, it brings more upgrades. I'm not really counting on that. That's not something massive. But again, margin so small. We lost P8 in qualifying to Hajar by 400s, right? So even let's say upgrade only that's 400s, that helps. So but you just got the focus and then try to get everything out of the car, everything out of both drivers.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you go there, and well done this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Nice interview. Haas currently 9th in the championship, but less than 10 points off Sauber, so it does make sense in some ways, although it is surprising that they are still looking at upgrades to try to make that 10th of a second, that 400th of a second, as he mentioned, count. And so the battle will go on, I'm sure, for these last 6 races to get up that board, and it is close, less than 10 points. And in fact, Aston Martin in 7th, not that far ahead of Kick Sauber. Well, we're going to take a short break here on Speed City, and when we come back, we'll discuss more on what happened in Singapore. So we're still looking at our buddies out on the internet. In a few short months, Apple TV will make this Sky ESPN look sound good. Interesting. Pay whaling.
Just so you guys know, I'm still here, but I might have to jump off to get Andrea.
Absolutely. You do that if you need to.
All right, but the connection seems decent at the moment.
Yeah,
so
it does.
Roaming.
Yeah, it does. Just having a look at who else is mentioning anything. Oyster Bay. Ollie could be a beast if he reduces the errors. Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think Ollie Behrman is a George Russell in the making in many ways. So just listen to what Chris is up to out there. We'll keep him in mind as he heads around the Singapore paddock. No rain. It didn't happen. That's good.
Nope.
In fact, it was an odd race in that respect. I kept thinking something's going to have to happen, and it never did. I thought there was going to be. I actually thought, and I was listening to the BBC's coverage, and they were talking about how the window between lap 28 and 38 is often the time when people make mistakes because they're pushing on to try and create the undercut or the overcut. But it didn't. It didn't happen. So there you go.
Yep.
What have you got?
Interesting to me is Ayao Komatsu was one of the few faces in the pit lane who would spread the word that Christian Horner, late of Red Bull, has been talking to every team in the pit lane.
Yeah, I noticed
He's
that.
called everyone. So
yeah,
we haven't seen the last of.
No, and I was actually going to make that a big point of one of the in the show today. But then the more I read, the more I realized that actually, as you dig into it, you kind of his options are limited, is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
We'll talk about that actually. Let's see what Chris has to say about it. I'll do the read coming up.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Now, in business, they say you can have better, cheaper, or faster, but you only get to pick 2. Well, what if you could have all 3 at the same time? Well, that's exactly what Cohere, Thomson Reuters, and Specialized Bikes have since they upgraded to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, is the blazing fast platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs, where you can run any workload in a high availability, consistently high performance environment and spend less you would with other operations and other clouds. How is it faster? OCI's block storage gives you more operations per second, cheaper. OCI costs up to 50% less than compute, which is 70% less for storage and 80% less for networking. Better. In test after test, OCI customers report lower latency and higher bandwidth versus other clouds. This is the cloud built for AI and all your biggest workloads. Right now, with zero commitment, try OCI for free. Head to oracle.com/formula. That's oracle.com/formula. Welcome back to Speed City. We've been chatting away. I want to throw, like I said, we could talk about other aspects of the race, but I kind of almost want to look forward. We've talked about the main points. There was a point brought up on Checkered Flag over the weekend. Jenny Gow said, does Leclerc need to put a sort of stake in the ground at the end of 26 if things don't get better at Ferrari and they don't give him a car that he's capable of winning in? And this is another performance, 6th and 7th. Hamilton's another story. He's just joined the team and he's kind of stuck with it for now. But Leclerc is sort of halfway through his career now, and you just wonder whether he has got the right horse underneath him, so to speak, that prancing horse. Anyway, I'll throw that out there. Chris, if you're still on, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm on, but I was not listening to Johnny. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I was listening to what Zach
Bob heard it. He can answer that question. Go on, Bob.
You go for it.
Well, the excuse me. From time to time across the history of Formula One, you find personalities like that who just can't find themselves in a situation to best demonstrate their talents. My mind immediately switched to my old colleague David Hobbs, who made a practice through his career of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Dumb luck, I guess, but I'm not sure the solution for someone like Leclerc would be, as you say, planting your flag in the ground saying, get me a better car or I'm out of here. I mean, if we could get you a better car, we'd have done it a long time ago.
Yeah, no kidding.
But this will be a chance for them to get it right under the new formula that comes into effect next year.
Yeah.
And we'll see if Ferrari can support both of his drivers the way they should be.
Well, to be fair, that supposition was for the end of 26 if nothing moves.
Right.
And I think it is open season.
Yeah, and on that note, actually, now I've caught up with what you guys are actually chatting about as well. I can see that Ferrari won't necessarily be giving them race-winning machinery or championship contending machinery, given the noises we've heard from Mercedes-powered teams.
Yeah.
And it feels like, just chatting to a few of the Ferrari-powered teams, they're not expecting disasters by any stretch. If anything, they think it'll be better than 2014 when Ferrari did really struggle at the start of that era. But that it just sounds like Mercedes will have a little bit of a lead. So then Leclerc has probably a tougher decision, doesn't he, to make if they are close enough, but not one of the top three teams, because you've got McLaren, you've got Mercedes, and then, dare I say it, could Williams or Alpine with a good car be right up there if the power unit's that good? So it could be tricky because unless you can get into one of the Mercedes cars, is there anywhere better to go? It's not just Leclerc and Ferrari that will be disappointed. There's so many other teams, and we're not talking about Red Bull really in kind of Drivers' Championship picture and Constructors' Championship picture for next year, the way we're hearing stories of where they're at with engine development, and that it might be a couple of seasons for them to get there. So I think we could have a few drivers that are maybe frustrated, but they might not have the opportunity to jump somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And Fernando Alonso has already said, if the car's good next year, I'll stick around. If the car's not, sayonara.
Yeah, and also the one that interests me, I mean, if Mercedes do continue on this sort of vein in terms of their engine production and dominance, if you will, I think it's going to be good for Williams because they're already on the way up. But I'm very interested to see if Alpine can actually sort of right the ship a little and whether that Mercedes power will be the answer for them. They've got two talented drivers. They've got a lot going on at the top of the of the management of the company. But I wonder whether the Mercedes thing might settle things down. Up to either of you to comment on that one. I know Chris is probably. He's off.
Yeah, I was pulling the same old thing of trying to mouth with someone about whether I could get an interview or not. So again, I've got to stop tuning out to you, haven't I, JG?
No, so sorry. Not at all. You're doing a job, mate. Everybody. I mean, I'm getting comments here. They've seen you on Sky ESPN today. They've seen you on F1 TV. I mean, you're everywhere. It's all good.
I'm always in the way. That's the main thing. And right now I'm in the way of the back of the McLaren garage. I saw some of the celebrations inside, but I was parking myself here to try and speak to Andrea Stella. I'm now told, though, because he's already been delayed and he's got another commitment now that he's late for. So we're going to get him after their team photo. Right. I can promise you, whether we're still live on air at that moment or if it's a midweek interview, will be chaos because that team photo is going to have a load of team members who've already been on the champagne celebrating a very big bonus. Yeah, I'll see if I actually can pull that off. But
yeah, how does that work? So if you win the constructors, each member of the team gets a bonus?
Yeah, generally, that's how most teams work.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if all the teams have the same structure, given it's not realistic for some of them. But for the front-running teams, that tends to be what it is. Latest figure I heard from one team that's won some championships in the past decade was that if you won the title, it was around, I need to put this in USD, probably about $16,000 or $17,000 per person as the bonus.
Wow.
And then you could look at maybe half of that for second and 10% of that for third, or maybe a bit more, 20% of it for third. So it makes a big difference to what you're buying the kids for Christmas.
No kidding. Yeah, that is a huge. But then again, like yourself, I've been around this for a long time, and I've been to the factories. I've also been at the pit lane at midnight and watched the work. It's a thankless task, and 17 grand is a lot of money, but they deserve it. Every penny of it. They work literally round the clock and don't see their families. They're on a plane 90% of their lives, and I've done it, and I don't want to do it again.
Right. They don't fly first class.
Nah.
They don't stay in suites in the hotel. It's a life you have to want.
Yeah,
I think
it's a young man's game. It's a young man's game. Your thoughts, Bob, on I mentioned it before the break, but just McLaren's rise, if you will, in the last 2 years, but it's been coming. And, a lot of people give Stella, who we're hoping to get the accolades for it, but you've watched McLaren over the years. What do you see as the big change around which was the catalyst to make what's happening now happen?
I think the biggest thing is stability among the personnel, among the engineering goals. We all can remember a day when McLaren the late aughts, when Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso were at each other's throats. That's all gone away now. I think Ron Dennis used to govern with an iron fist, and you didn't want to cross him or you'd find yourself on the street. But Zach Brown and Andrea Stella have put a real, what would the word be? A calmness and a desire to do well, to do your job as good as you can do it, just for the sake of doing it as well as you can do it. And you might wind up winning a world championship. I think people are going to write in business schools for years to come about the way Zach Brown ran his organization, because they did back in the day when Ron Dennis was running it. It's interesting. Recall when Adrian Newey was on the market.
Yep.
And when the board of directors for McLaren said, "Oh, let's get Newey."
Yeah.
And Zach said, "No, I don't want to do that. I got a great design department.
Yeah,
we need to give them the room to do their job. We don't need a guy with a diamond covered resume back there, because I don't think it's fair, because if the car comes great, it'll be Newey's car. And if it doesn't, it'll be because everybody else screwed up." That's not a knock on Newey, but I think Zach could tell that the attitude in the rank and file at McLaren needed, that stability. They needed to be, no heroes.
Yeah.
Everybody does their job, and we'll be fine. And they have been.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting,
it's brave, isn't it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it's brave, because you're right. That's exactly what they did, and said, we don't need to bring you in, because if we continue winning, everyone, like you say, praises him. And if we don't, then not only would it be that it was everyone else's fault, but it then becomes the thing that maybe rocks the boat. And it's so hard to turn down a talent like that, like really hard. But I genuinely think they took themselves out of that race because they went, we've got it right, and everyone else is trying to chase what we've got now. They've got Rob Marshall, don't forget, who was at Red Bull as well and seen as very influential there. But they've got such a good team, as you say, a number of figures. And that's what Mercedes actually had during one of their more dominant periods too, is that they had a number of big names, James Allison, Aldo Costa, just to name a couple, even Andy Cowell on the engine side.
James Valls.
But they didn't have just one that you talked about. Yeah, James Valls in strategy. It was across the board. It was a strength. It wasn't just relying on one person. And if there is one person, then yes, it's Newey. But I did think that was a very brave call from Zach and from McLaren in general. And it's absolutely paid off. I don't see anyone who would have said at the start of this year, or well, at the end of last year, that this is the way it would have gone. I think everyone was expecting it to be much closer than this. And that really does show how McLaren actually just methodically found ways to improve and was still developing and maturing as an organization. And another kind of aspect of the Zach Brown school of thought that you're just talking about is that nobody steals team members from anyone else. You lose them yourself. Like if you make sure you don't give them a reason to ever want to leave, then you're going to be safe. No one's going to be able to come and steal them as such. He said, with the partners and sponsors they all have, if someone wants to leave McLaren, it's his fault. It's not because someone else has stolen them. And he looks internally at that. It's about that culture. And I think that's where it really worked out. But also, I think there's a sliding doors moment that is, there's some praise needs to go to Audi and Sauber for this. But when Andreas Seidel was in charge there, things had looked kind of like they were improving slightly, but from a low bar. But there was concern within McLaren that Seidel wasn't actually the guy to lead it, that it wasn't going the way they wanted, that he wasn't quite able to give them the culture that they were after, but also actually the commitment, because he was still living in Germany. And what Stella was doing behind the scenes and the way he was working was really standing out to Brown. Like, he should be my guy, but I've got my team boss, and that's a really hard change to make. And then Seidel came and knocked on his door and said, hey, I'm not going to say after the end of my contract because Audi have offered me like the head role there to develop Sauber into the Audi Works team. I'm going to take that when my contract's up here. And Zach was like, brilliant. In fact, let's make it happen now. I've got the guy I want in place, so let's go for it. And it was, I think, a happy coincidence that it meant, because of course everything takes so long to implement. Stuff doesn't happen overnight. So it got Stella into that role earlier than maybe McLaren had envisaged or ever would have done. And from there, we've seen the steps. They started slowly in start of 23 and even at the start of 24, but we've seen progress year on year. And you do wonder, actually, has it ended yet? Or can they get stronger?
It's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point. And I do almost want to linger a little bit longer. We're going to take a short break, but just the whole idea of changing the culture of a team, it's something that both Williams and McLaren have done in the last few years. And it's worth just seeing how they did it. We'll take a short break. We'll be back to wrap up Singapore after this. Yeah, and hey guys, on the interweeb, everything we're talking about, feel free to jump in, especially as we're talking about McLaren. I do find Chris, it was great hearing your take on it, because I agree, to change the culture. It's funny, your era or mine and Bob's era of being in the pit lane. You knew what Williams were all about, and it was Frank, and it was a small team, and it was the little team that did. You knew what Ferrari were about, which was haven't won a championship in 29 years, but always fighting for it. You knew that McLaren were almost Teutonic in their approach with Ron Dennis, and yet that culture has now disappeared, which, like you said, does not happen overnight. And I think both Zach and James Valls have done an amazing job of imprinting their personality, their way of working onto their entire workforce, and that's true leadership in my book. Guys, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, well, no, I totally agree with you.
I had a chat in connection with a business project I was working on, and I had a long chat with Zach Brown at Miami last year. And he came up with some things that I had never even thought of, that it's his job to think of, and then, incorporate that in the building process. Roger Penske did something similar in connection with this same project. He said, it's very simple. We make our company very hard to get into, and then we make it very hard to leave because they treat their people so well. And
which you wouldn't have said of Ron Dennis.
No. It's simple.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Welcome back. We are wrapping up the Singapore Grand Prix. Nice to hear from Gunther Steiner. He'll be live here in Austin at the Paramount, no less, on the week of the Grand Prix. He's doing a podcast live, which is great because it just adds to the weekend. Some celebrities coming in. Jay Leno is coming in. He's playing again on the Friday night, and I'm sure we will see him at the Grand Prix because it's no surprise that Jay Leno is performing Friday night before the Grand Prix. So I expect him to be showing up at that. But we've been talking about culture and culture change. Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Speaking of celebrities coming in, is Bob Varsha coming in for Austin?
Yeah, well, we have prepared both the carpet and the 21-gun salute, so he better.
Yeah, the private
I
jets
haven't
on
had a
standby.
chance to read the contract yet.
Good point. Well, we shouldn't have written it in Urdistanian, but talking of Austin, Chris, while we're on that subject, you kind of alluded to it with Ayao, which is, that Haas can have good weekends there, but he kind of described it as being a really tricky track to find the window. So what, in your mind, would you say is who to look for in Austin as potentially dominating?
Honestly, I'm interested to see both how Ferrari and Red Bull go there because McLaren have already talked about the fact they think they might find it a bit tricky with some of the bumps and some of the curb riding that you need to do. That's one of the common denominators they found from the last three races that they've really struggled at, certainly in qualifying, and not been able to really fight for the win-in. So that was Canada, Baku, and here. And they said it's okay, the corner profile is slightly different in Austin, but there's some lower speed ones, the hairpin in particular in turn one. But you're attacking curbs, and our curb riding isn't as good as some others. And that kind of adds up with some bumps as well to a bit of instability that then takes driver confidence away, costs you lap time. So they think that it might not actually be their best track. Andrea Stella said, yes, they could struggle there. They'll be happy they've then locked down one of the championships. But that could open the door for either Ferrari, who did look very good there a year ago, but haven't quite managed to make it click so far this year, or Red Bull with the progress they're making.
Yeah.
And if it is Red Bull with the progress they're making, we've got to remember that this gap is coming down. It is still getting closer. Like 41 points taken out of Oscar Piastri's lead by Max Verstappen in the last three races. So at the rate he's going, it's very unlikely he keeps that up, but at the rate he's going, he would catch him. Will that continue? I don't know, but the pressure only builds for the longer that the run continues of weekends when Red Bull get the better of McLaren.
Do you think there's a potential wobble at McLaren, given that it's going to come to a head, or will now the Constructors' Championship settle things down again?
I think it's more likely to actually create more tension, more of a wobble. I had a very brief chat with David Coulthard, actually, for a Motorsport magazine feature earlier today, where he said he was looking forward to McLaren getting this sealed so the gloves could come off in the drivers' fight.
Yeah,
well, the gloves looked like they were off, didn't they, today? At one point?
Think so, yeah.
I know I've kind of given Lando a bit of a get out for that, but he still was aggressive. And as we get closer to the end of the season and Max is looming, then you can only see that the two drivers are going to fight even harder. And that's where I kind of feel like actually it could really start to bubble up because they know that they're not going to cost the team a championship. They've won the big money. That bit's done. It's now just about the drivers.
Yep. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Don't get any.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I tend to follow that train of thought that it's got to make it more interesting, not less.
Yeah, I think so.
They're going to get less polite, not more.
By the way, a little bit of trivia for both of you and our listening audience. Remember Bobby Epstein said that we're going to have some special things in the paddock this year. It's going to be bigger and better, sort of thing. And he didn't elaborate on that. Well, little old Johnny boy here was up at the track the other day doing a Porsche Carrera Cup test. Not me. One of the young drivers from Texas, from Dallas, Jet Bowling, was doing a test. But I noticed that the hospitalities were double what they were last year. So there you go. I don't know whether that is telling too much, but work it out. The hospitalities kind of look like Miami now. Sorry, not like Miami, like Vegas now, whereby you've got a lot more room and a lot more access, if you will, visually to those hospitalities. Plus, the stairways now going from turn 2 up to the top of turn 1 for photographers and fans to have a look at. Basically, you will be amazed at just how much every nook and cranny is now being used for a view of this amazing track. So look forward to seeing that.
Does that count for a Casey breaking news gong?
No, I don't. No, Casey went home ages ago. He got bored about lap 4. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand. Didn't really catch fire, did it?
Breaking news. We're going double at Kota. Yeah, that was that. There's your gong.
I must admit, there's sometimes when we're doing this show and we start looking ahead, I'm like, come on, guys, I'm still trying to run around and review this race.
Well,
But
actually, I was actually going to ask you that.
Much. I can't wait for that.
Just for an insight, Chris, just tell us what your day now looks. What time is it now at night? It's what, 10 o'clock?
11 p.m.
11 p.m. Okay. Tell me what you're going to do for the next 24 hours.
McLaren are about to do their team photo, but Andrea Stella's still holding court with the print media, so looks like I get him afterwards rather than before, which sadly means it'll be when we're, I think, off air. But so I'll run around, I'll do that. Then I'll do a bulletin for SiriusXM's news updates. Then I will actually go to any remaining team principal print media sessions, start writing news stories for races.com, write an analysis of the race and the weekend for races.com as well. Then I'll record a social media video for them also. Then Motorsport Magazine features, I mentioned to you, that needs wrapping up for them to have on Monday morning. So
what's your feature?
Good Lord.
It's actually like a diary. So it's kind of like, bullet point news stories that come out the race weekend, little nuggets I've heard.
You've exhausted Bob just talking about it.
Doohan. I know.
You're going to talk about Jack Doohan.
Do the power rankings. Yeah, well, I've nearly finished with my job list. Power rankings for the F1 official website. And then I will go and find some street food and a cold beer.
Goodness gracious.
Jack Doohan is maybe looking at a switch to Haas in a reserve capacity. I heard links with actually the Toyota partnership there, maybe opening a door for him to do some super formula racing. And then he can do some TPC running with Haas as part of that program, and would count as a reserve driver for them. So there's a good fit there. And I saw Mick Doohan down for a long time having a chat with Ayao Komatsu on, I think, Thursday or Friday. So, I've heard there's some momentum there, but nothing to be announced just yet.
And on that same front, Mick Schumacher has been testing or is testing for Dale Coyne, I believe, in IndyCar.
Rahal.
Sorry, Rahal, yeah.
Isn't it Rahal? Yeah. RLL.
Yes, it was Hauger that tested for Coyne, wasn't it? Yeah. So Dennis Hauger also testing. So, there's going to be some driver movement, but probably at the reserve level. And as you've heard from earlier in the show, we've announced Cadillac's sim drivers. Last thoughts, Chris, before we go. We've got a few seconds. And he's gone.
Very
he's
impressive from McLaren to get this deal done and get over the line with a quarter of the season still to go. Very big achievement we shouldn't overlook given what's happening in the Drivers' Championship. But that Drivers' Championship is still getting closer, and that excites me. And I can't wait to get to Austin to see the next stage of that and just to see you boys and have fun.
There you go. Well, I'm going to say, after that list of work that you're doing, you'll need a beer. Bob, your thoughts? Not the most classic of Singapore Grand Prix, but your last thoughts.
No, but it is a pretty place. And now the season finally, comes to us here in North America, the United States in particular. We'll have Austin, and we'll have Mexico, and Brazil, and Las Vegas. So there's lots to enjoy.
There's a lot to come from this season. 6 races to come. We have just crowned the Constructors' Champions, and they are McLaren for the second year in a row. Congratulations, though, also goes to that man of the moment, George Russell, who wins the Singapore Grand Prix, Verstappen second and Norris third. That's it for this week. 2 weeks' time, we'll be here in little old Austin. Join us at Elroy, Texas for the USA Grand Prix. Until then, bye-bye for now.